Government can take that data, they can determine who their enemies are, they can misconstrue that data, as they did in the case of Barrett Brown, and persecute those that they feel are threats to their power. They don't just passively monitor what you're doing, they also try to actively change the way you think about things. And of course, long before social media, there was that traditional way of doing it called the movies, called Hollywood. And there's a report today on Wired Magazine about the new movie, Black Hat. This fellow who works for Wired Magazine, he's actually one of their contributing editors, said, "Why I hope Congress never watches Black Hat, the movie." He says, "It wasn't until this week, Tuesday evening to be exact, that my anxiety over the timing of the movie set in. That's when the White House released its legislative proposal to reform U.S. computer crime policy in reaction to the Sony breach. President Obama plans to formally announce at the State of the Union next Tuesday, that's tomorrow night, but the details are now public, and many of those details are troubling. Under current laws, some hacks that are now misdemeanors will become felonies. Furthermore, CFAA violations would qualify for prosecution under the mob-busting RICO statute, meaning that, for example, if a member of Anonymous is busted in a petty denial of service attack, he or she might now be held legally accountable for every cyber crime that Anonymous has committed. More disturbingly, the proposal includes sweeping language that directly impairs even legitimate security work. And he points out the timing of this is very troubling to him. Understand, and he points out that the director of this movie, Michael Mann, and he talks about what a big fan he was of Miami Vice. Understand that Michael Mann has worked for the government before. Miami Vice sold civil asset forfeiture under the drug war. They sold that as fun and games for the police. Remember when Crockett and Tubbs were driving around in these exotic cars and boats that they had stolen from people? That made civil asset forfeiture not only acceptable and normal to the general public, but it made it cool. And so now Michael Mann is selling just in time a new movie that is showing the dangers of hacking, just as Obama wants to make brand new felonies and add those to the criminal list. This is something we should all be very concerned about, and especially when we look at how they're using the Sony interview to justify new legislation, new internet controls. Just today, the federal government has come out and said, hey, we knew all along about this hack in North Korea. We've been following them since 2010, so we knew they were going to do this. We just didn't stop them. When they say that, when they say that they had embedded themselves into North Korea and that's how they knew that the attacks were coming from North Korea, they've just admitted, if that's true, that they committed a false flag. When you know that something is going to happen, when you know there's going to be some kind of an attack or a terrorist event, and you not only don't stop it, but you allow it to happen and use it for your policy advantages as they're doing, that's one definition of a false flag. Now they're going into this mode trying to say that they had hacked North Korea 5 years ago. They're saying that because every other cybersecurity expert, including McAfee, came out this weekend and said, no, it wasn't North Korea, it was somebody else. Desperate to sell the lie, they have unwittingly made themselves into the authors of a false flag attack. But it's not just taking people's data and exposing it or stealing their credit card information. When we go to cyber warfare, there is real physical danger. One of the ways that that can be illustrated is with a cyber hack of a car. Basically, people can be assassinated if you take over what is currently available in the cars today. Now, it's not been easy to do that because you had to have physical access to the cars, but it's becoming more and more easy to get into the cars by remote, wirelessly. This is an article on INFOWARS.com today, the next frontier of hacking your car. They say most hacks haven't done any physical damage yet. Well, that's assuming that we don't count the people that Richard Clark had mentioned when we were talking about the Michael Hastings attack, assuming that the government hasn't already used this to cause runaway acceleration in somebody's car, to cause them to have an accident, to deploy the airbags by remote control. That's the sort of thing that can be done with these hacks. And assuming that that hasn't already been done, this is what may be done in the future as we go wireless. They say modern day automobiles already contain dozens of computer systems to handle a wide variety of functions. They are frequently linked together on shared networks, and until recently, it didn't create much of a hacking risk because you needed to have physical access to the car. But now that they're being connected, and of course, that was one of the big issues with the Detroit Motor Show. They were talking about new power plants, connectivity, and autonomy for the cars. And that connectivity, connecting to the internet constantly in your car, as well as connecting to adjacent cars with the now mandated vehicle-to-vehicle communications that will start appearing be mandated on all cars in just a few years. That is going to make all cars very vulnerable. As they point out, in one attack, they've already been able to insert a malicious music file that, if played on the car's stereo, would let hackers gain control of the car's computer systems. In another, they demonstrated that they could hack into the diagnostic equipment used by auto mechanics using Wi-Fi. So in just a couple of years, with all cars having mandated vehicle-to-vehicle communication, how difficult would it be for somebody to send bogus information that would make a car think that a collision was imminent, that it would take drastic action, deploying airbags, swerving off the road, whatever? Very easy to do that with vehicle-to-vehicle communication. We're going to have to wait and see exactly what happens. But already today, we have systems throughout the cars that can be hacked, that can be used to cause cars to crash. Now, right after the break, Alex Jones is going to be joining us to talk about American Sniper. It's not just Black Hat, and it's not just a Sony interview that they're using to propagandize and change public opinions, and it's never been more painfully obvious. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Sold out for weeks due to the difficult and extensive proprietary process behind its creation, the exclusive INFOWARS Life Secret 12 formulation is now back in stock in the last limited shipment of 2014. The most bioactive form that has been created with our proprietary process. This ultra-clean vitamin B12 nutraceutical has been carefully crafted and developed over the last 2 years and is based on cellular science of how your body actively absorbs essential nutrients. Secret 12 is taken by mouth, right on the tongue, and then swallowed. No needles, no injections. Vitamin B12 deficiency is linked to scores of serious problems. And Secret 12 is a fusion of 2 organic proprietary forms of vitamin B12, bringing you a true nutraceutical quality vitamin B12. Secret 12. Secret 12 is an excellent Christmas gift and is tailor-made to boost your New Year's resolutions. Supplies of Secret 12 are very limited. Secure yours today at InfoWarsLife.com or by calling toll-free 888-253-3139.
The Molon Lave Silver Coin, certified by the Provident Mint. This 1-ounce silver round is 0.999% fine silver, inspired by the legendary Spartan king Leonidas and his refusal to lay down arms in defiance of Emperor Xerxes. Molon Lave, that's Greek for come and take it. This is available now at InfoWarsStore.com. Act now as supplies are limited. And don't forget, free shipping and a free gift. That's InfoWarsStore.com.
And finally tonight on InfoWars Nightly News, we're going to break down and analyze what is some of the most thought-provoking propaganda that we have ever seen in 20 years of operation. I'm talking, of course, about the blockbuster film that made over $105 million on its opening weekend, produced and directed by Hollywood icon of icons, legend, Clint Eastwood. I've been a big fan of Clint Eastwood since I grew up watching spaghetti westerns with my folks, and I agree with many of the political views of Clint Eastwood. That said, the film is very upsetting when you know the admitted facts surrounding Chris Kyle, the American Sniper's life, and the book that he wrote so it would be produced into a Hollywood film. Please keep an open mind here, because I'm not attacking Chris Kyle. I'm not attacking Clint Eastwood. I'm attacking a known Pentagon system that creates fables, that creates stories, that creates legends to manipulate the public mind. Now, before I get into the film itself and my review and breakdown, it's important to note that in a few minutes we'll play a clip of where I actually had a discussion with Chris Kyle shortly before he was killed outside Dallas, Texas. So I've talked to Mr. Kyle on air, and I've also talked to some of his friends and family. But before I get into this current case, I want to look at some past cases where we've caught corrupt elements inside the Pentagon engaging in serious deception. First, let's look at the case of Pat Tillman, who I see as a real hero. gave up a lucrative contract to go join his brother fighting who he believed was involved in the September 11th attacks. He began to write home to family and friends saying, this whole war is a fraud and we're helping him grow the drugs and it's a scam. I'm going to come home and expose it. Well, they executed him, then claimed he was a hero who died charging a machine gun nest fighting al-Qaeda. It later came out because the Army coroner wouldn't lie that he'd been killed by friendly fire in an apparent homicide. Now pay attention to this pattern. Pat Tillman was worth billions in Army and Pentagon recruiting money. They couldn't allow him to then turn against it, so he had to be taken out because this pattern repeats over and over again. Remember Private Jessica Lynch. It even came out that Jerry Bruckheimer, the Hollywood producer, was on sat phone directing how to save her at the hospital, which they knew the Iraqis had pulled out 3 days previous. They gave her credit for battling this column of Iraqis in her supply truck as the men cowered in fear. Well, the men began to speak out and say, we actually fought them. She hid in the back in fear. So not one, not two, not three, but 4 different members who were actually in the firefight all ended up dying, getting shot in the head, being found dead in their cars, being found in a puddle of water, because dead men tell no tales. Then Private Lynch went public in a press conference and said, it's all a fraud. I was told to lie, to put out a book, to put out a movie. They already had Hollywood deals to come out and show her as this hero, to recruit women into the military, and to sell the military on the idea of putting women in frontline combat.
All I know is I don't believe that Jesse Ventura said you deserve to lose a few. But as soon as he said the thing on O'Reilly and stuff about, yeah, he said you deserve to die. You guys deserve to die when the family's right there. That is made up, period. I knew it was bull then.
I feel the opinion that he said exactly what I thought he heard. And I feel horrible about it coming out the way it had. And I'm sorry I handled it the way I did on your show. I guess I should have just denied it and said, I don't know what you're talking about.
And again, right now he sounds like a nice guy. So I'm completely blown away by this because Ventura sounds credible. You know, Kyle, right now sounds calm and nice. And I mean, I don't know what kind of psyop this is or what this is.
Just as with Pat Tillman or with Jessica Lynch, when the asset, when the front man's story is compromised, they kill members of the unit who aren't playing ball, or they kill the front person if they don't go along with it. Now, we don't know what really happened with Chris Kyle, but even before he was dead, we had reporters on the ground in Boston, and we had the surveillance footage that showed men wearing the uniform of his security company, Kraft International, with the Punisher symbol, with the blood dripping, wearing their uniforms and having black backpacks. And we never said that they were involved in the bombing. We surmised that they were probably called in to run security because there may have been intel that there was going to be a terror attack. The media then spun that and claimed that we were saying they were terrorists. So that let us know that we were on target, that they were putting this type of disinformation out. Then MSNBC came out claiming the Zarneb brothers bombed and that I had actually influenced them with no evidence. So you need to understand, anytime you get near Chris Kyle or Kraft International or anything they're involved in, there's massive controversy going on. And that's because we know Navy SEALs and private contractor groups made up of SEALs, like Blackwater and others, are used as intelligence group cutouts and a lot of time are used for patsies or decoys. Ladies and gentlemen, I live this. I didn't just debate Chris Kyle. I'm not just friends with Jesse Ventura. I didn't just cover the Boston bombing with our reporters on ground and break the major stories of what appeared to be Kraft International on the ground, and then they wouldn't deny it. I lived here in Austin and saw with my own eyes the city shut down for much of a day while Chris Kyle's body was brought in to be buried and as he was built up as the ultimate hero. This thing has all the signs of scripting from the start to the finish, and it needs to be investigated to really discover who Chris Kyle was and why he was actually killed. This thing stinks to high heaven. And then you go and sit in the theater and watch the movie, and he loves Muslims and he wants to help them, and He wants to get Al